Is the world this week. We are in the company of Stefan de Vries of Dutch radio station RTL4, Christian Wernicke of German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, Elena Servatas of sister station Radio France International, and Franco-Syrian photojournalist Amer Abed Rabo. Amer, just before the break, talking about how he feels as though it's like the movie Groundhog Day. It's a repeat of.
It is a repeat
of what we've seen in the past 5 years. Of course, things have changed to a certain degree. Last week, there was talk of a truce that might be brokered by Egypt. The Prime Minister promised calm would be met with calm. Today, not anymore.
No international reaction will prevent us from reacting as strong as we can against a terrorist organisation that is trying to wipe us out. We'll continue to attack powerfully and firmly all those who attack us.
And Israel may have the upper hand militarily, but they've got the rest of the Palestinians rallying around Hamas.
Israel has destroyed the peace process. It has pulled out of the talks. It has carried out collective punitive measures in the West Bank. It has terrorized the people. It is now engaged in a full-fledged assault against Gaza, and it wants us to blame Hamas.
Everybody on message at this point. We're into day 4 of the tit-for-tat shelling and bombings. Stefan de Vries, there's right now the military operations. We know Israel has the upper hand there, but there's the public relations war. Who's winning that?
Well, technically it's Israel, because they're much more professionally organized. I mean, if you go to Israel during these kinds of conflicts, then you really, I went a couple of times and I'm always surprised by how professional they are organized, how well they're organized for the press. The infrastructure is great, whereas the Palestinians don't have any communications or PR infrastructure. Very cynical, of course, but that's maybe the reason why Israel wins this communication war. I think it's very complicated because, of course, Israel has the right to defend itself against rocket attacks, but at the same time, the situation is hopeless. And I was talking about Groundhog Day, and I'm afraid it's the right term. I'm even afraid it will be much more likely that one day the Netherlands will become world champion football than we will ever see peace in this part of the world. So we can talk about this for years and years, and nobody probably has the right answer.
Elena Servatas?
Just wanted to add about PR, because all these days we was covering all those events. And I mean, for me, it's just a bit strange to find out, for example, I have with me Le Monde, Libération and Figaro, and everybody's writing about Gaza under attack. And for me, it was difficult to find the information from the other side. So how we were operating in a different manner. So we're contacting people in Israel inside, or just trying to get into communication with people from Tzahal. And only like this, we knew, not from Depeche AFP, how many bombs were thrown from that side to Israel.
What are you saying, the French newspapers?
For me, it's clear not. For me, it's, look, I have all these newspapers with me. You see Gaza under attack, and you see quite nothing about Israel. For me, it's a bit surprising. I mean, as for the journalists, for me, there is a counterbalance to one side. So in terms of PR, I think that this Palestinian
certainly when it comes to the French press, you're saying.
Yeah.
There is a kind of tradition in the French press that it's not about Palestinians, but usually people are with the victims. And it's terrible to say. I mean, I don't like to do accounting. It's terrible to do accounting in this affair. But when you have from one side very small rockets that are terrible, of course, to have them every day, but on the other side you have 100 killed, and there is a kind of accounting, and so the victim is on one side, not on both sides.
It was very interesting to watch in the press conference earlier of the Israeli Prime Minister. You had the sense that he was aware of that, the fact that you have that bookkeeping of if more than 100 Palestinians killed so far, and because of the success of the Iron Dome, no Israeli fatalities.
Yeah, I nevertheless think that Israel is winning the decisive PR war. The decisive PR war is not about France, Germany, Holland, Russia, whatever. The decisive PR war is for the American public. And Israel is winning because they have the best PR relations with not only with a lot of NGOs in Washington, but also with the American Congress. And it's absolutely sure that Netanyahu, who's talking about international pressure, he is not under severe international pressure. The rather soft reactions from the European side and certainly from the American side are giving him leeway even for a ground operation.
Were you surprised that it was even softer, it seems, in the communique by the French president? The word Palestinian did not appear on Wednesday.
It's one indication. Everybody is calling them, both parties, to be reasonable and to be measured, but it's not saying stop any violence. It says, if you go to war, do it in a measured way. I mean, that is really, that's you can call it cynical, but it's also realistic, unfortunately, because there are no forces on both sides that call for reason in the sense of calling for non-violence or for calling for peaceful solutions. And worse than in the past is that because the US has retreated from the region and Egypt is now under control of a government that's 30 anti-Islamist, we don't have any third party that's really interfering and trying to mediate the thing.
At least not at this point. Amar Abed Rabo, you made the point earlier about comparing with Syria. You're just back from Aleppo, the largest city in Syria before the civil war, at least. Jihadists of ISIS there have been grabbing the headlines. You described the Aleppo that you saw. You were telling me before the show, it's not just the Sunni radicals. It's also on the other side, and we forget about it, the government forces. And here we can see one of the pictures that you took there. Tell us about this photo.
It's a photo that's quite common. I mean, this site is quite common in Aleppo. In every street you have a destroyed block of buildings with these famous barrels. You know, it's a barrel filled with explosives, and it's been thrown from helicopters.
Barrel bombs by the government.
Exactly, by the government. I mean, who has helicopters in Syria? It's the government. So they are being thrown randomly. Sometimes they had 50 barrels a day, which is totally, I mean, it's unbelievable, but that's the case. When I was there, it was only like 8 barrels a day, because it's most of the population has left, you know, gone to Turkey or gone to refugees camps or gone to other parts in Syria. So from last year, in these areas that are controlled by the rebels or by the Free Syrian Army, there was 1.5 million population. Now it's around 250,000. So it's 7 times less people there. And it seems like it was the goal of the government to empty the city and try to tighten the blocus on it, and the blockade, like what happened in Homs, and maybe enter it or try to enter it sooner or later. The people inside are very motivated. The 200,000 who stay, they're very motivated. They have an amazing faith in life and in the revolution. And I've seen amazing things, you know, like people coming back.
And tell us here what's written here on the wall.
This wall says, I mean, the main sentence says, "Watch it, there's a sniper." So it's a sniper wall. But it's a sniper wall that is very clean. There's a man who is cleaning the street. That's in Salahuddin area. It's one of the best organized area in Aleppo, because there's a local council that takes care of the people. That's not at all, that has no relation with the radicals as we know them. So it's a very interesting photo for this.
All right. And of course it's a bit of a shock when you come from Aleppo, and this week you've gone to cover Paris Fashion Week at the end.
Of course, it's a shock, but it's also part of life. You know, you don't stick to one story, you don't stick to one feeling. We can laugh and then cry 10 minutes later. We can be angry and then love someone. I mean, it's part of our lives. This is a very interesting photo also, because it shows what is called an anti-sniper wall, done with sheets, you know, and it's maybe 12 or 15 meters high. You can see a motorbike. That gives an idea of the scale. This is Aleppo. There are a lot of people who are still there and who are very
resourceful.
resourceful and
looks at that photo.
and creative. There was even a sitcom that was shot in Aleppo under the shelling. Because it's Ramadan time now, and during Ramadan there are sitcoms in the Arab world. People watch and laugh, and it was shot in Aleppo there. So these are things that are much more fun than the Fashion Week, I can tell you.
Okay. The tide has turned in Ukraine, where tanks are now within striking distance of the east's largest city, Donetsk, as many rebels ditch their uniforms. It's been bloody. There was 23 government soldiers killed this Friday. Now, conspicuously silent on the matter is Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, who's made pronouncements through his foreign minister the last few days. There you see him arriving in Cuba for a tour of Latin America. But so far, the Kremlin calling for a ceasefire, and Putin a lot more measured. Is he going to be able to make a clean pivot away from this conflict? Why is he silent, Elena Servatas?
Because you guys don't listen to him clearly. Because while he was in Normandy last time, he was very loud. And he explained to President Obama and to all the international community that he can have some points of pressure on separatists on Lugansk and Donetsk, but he haven't seen Obama talking to him. And so he repeated this once again until the moment that West will not start negotiation with him. You will have the same situation over, and maybe in autumn during the parliamentary election, that will be a real escalation. So he's just waiting. He was clear as never.
Biting his lip, waiting for playing for time. We've seen the EU increase sanctions, or talk about it at least, preparing further sanctions against isolated individuals. But you were telling us, Christian Wernicke, in part one of our discussion, how public opinion is more divided than it seems in Western Europe.
Yeah, I think so. But it's, I mean, this certainly applies to Germany. We see tendencies here in France as well. An amazing alliance between Marine Le Pen, the leader of the right-wing Front National, and praising Putin for its domestic as well as foreign policy. I mean, there are things evolving in Western Europe that haven't been imaginable a few years ago. But concerning Putin and the situation in the Ukraine, I'm more and more doubtful to what extent the rebels in the east of the Ukraine are really under control of anybody. I mean, we read stories from local correspondents that even the chief commander in the east is having doubts about the prolongation of this war, and then his sub-commanders say if he gives up, we will not give up, and things like that. So we are not really clear to what extent these are all cards in Putin's hand that are out there in the field. But certainly also we can see that the well-praised and glorious civil society in Ukraine is now asking for war. They are asking the president of Ukraine to go and kill them. I mean, that's, in a way, we talked about that, to what extent democracies make war and dictatorship makes war, but here it's civil society asking for full war against separatists.
Full war, and it's certainly something we saw startling last weekend, the battle for Slavyansk, a flashpoint city that had been held by the separatists. It included the shelling of apartment blocks and the bombing of urban areas by government forces. In the ensuing aftermath, a lot of bitterness among residents.
Our dear President Poroshenko said that he will reconstruct everything, fix everything, and we will live happily ever after. But it's pathetic.
Steve.
About who controls the separatists. As soon, I don't know, they have arms, where it's the same story as in Syria, for example. You know, you said that only government has the helicopters. Where the arms are going from for those guys in Donetsk and Luhansk. So
yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that the arms come from Russia, but I'm not sure that they, now that they have the arms, are still that there's a Russian officer or a Russian big hand behind it and telling them when to use the arms, or when to stop using the arms. We're not so sure about that.
Stefan de Vries, how much will this Pandora's box that's been opened come back to haunt not just Russia and Ukraine, but all of Europe?
Wow.
Well, it's complicated because, of course, Ukraine is a direct neighbor, and it's also, well, not an official candidate, but it has long been, well, soon to be official candidate to be a member of the European Union. I don't think that will ever be the case, or not in the next 20 years at least. But what it shows is that the European Union is not capable to have a real uniform foreign policy, because there are countries that support, well, not support Russia, but are more, they're hesitating to defend Ukraine. Poland, for instance, is very wants action of the European Union. France is currently training 400 Marines somewhere in the west of France, 400 Russian Marines, because they just sold 2 huge naval vessels. So all the European countries have different interests. Of course, Germany needs the Russian gas. The Dutch are in there with business as well. It's the biggest foreign direct investor in Russia. So everybody has different interests. And Europe doesn't seem to, once again, find an answer what to do about this question. But it's clear that war is at our doors, and that's something pretty worrying.
All right. We'll graduate now to the religious affairs segment of our show. Dateline, the Vatican, or at least that's how Le Monde's cartoonist Plantu sees next Sunday's final of the World Cup. There's his cartoon, an Argentinian Pope and his German predecessor together enjoying the beautiful game. I think it says, "Communion is football," says Pope Francis in that picture. Amar Abed-Rabo, are you looking forward to the final?
Like everybody, it's very difficult not to look forward to it. Like everybody, I was just amused, let's say, a few days ago when there was the terrible match, of Germany against Brazil, because a lot of people I know, especially people from the Middle East, they're always in the conspiracy theory. So many of them were telling me, "Oh, Brazil is winning; they cannot lose on their land, they will win because they bought it, they arranged something with FIFA, they arranged something with Blatter, etc." And then when you see the result, it's not 2-1. It's a real huge humiliation for Brazil. Maybe in 30 years, we'll keep on talking about this special night. So
it's just because Germany paid more to send than Brazil.
So the whole conspiracy theory again is a little bit terrible,
Christian Wernicke, at the end of the game, we saw the Germans consoling the Brazilians. Now, I got to say, a lot of people were rooting for Germany, saying it's the Germans who are playing more like the Brazilians should be playing than the Brazilians themselves. But when it was 2-0, then 3-0, then 4-0, then 5-0, some were saying it was almost unsporting to keep on scoring goals. Here we have a comment on Twitter. How on earth could scoring goals against an opponent be rude? Germany played like true champions. Did you feel uneasy when it was 7-0?
Yeah, I felt a little bit uneasy about it, but then I was there with my 10-year-old son, so how can I explain to him that?
Did you cheer just as loudly on the 7th goal?
No, I did not. But I honestly, being as a journalist, always a little bit on the pessimistic side. When I saw how Oscar scored in the 90th minute the goal, I'm just afraid that Argentina can do the same on Sunday. Everybody now thinks, yes, the Germans are the best team in the tournament, they should win the World Cup. But this is not done yet. And if the Germans get if the Argentina scores the first goal, this will be a very difficult final for the Germans.
All right. Another viewer saying, agreeing, I do not think it was rude of Germany to score 7 goals. Otherwise, it may have seemed like a fixed match. Bringing us back to the point.
And it's something that Stefan can talk about, because there are many indications that in 1978, the Argentina bought the World Cup.
The famous win against Peru in the...
that
got them the win against Peru that brought them to the final.
Yeah, that's true.
Then if we go to 78, we have to talk about 82, when Germany and Austria had a very fixed match.
Very embarrassing, yes.
Stefan de Vries, your thoughts on this at this point? Actually, you know what? Let's listen first to the coach of Brazil, because it is a trauma what's happened there. 7-1. They still have to play, by the way, one more game. Saturday's consolation final against the Dutch, after Brazil's first loss on home soil since 1975.
E perdemos jogo. We lost one game. It was an ugly game we lost. If we had lost 1-0, it would not have been a catastrophe, but the catastrophe happened. It's over, it's over. Will it go down in history? Yes, it will. And when we started, the players also knew that. They are ready to watch what happens on Saturday, and we have already started a new approach.
A new approach. Contrast that, if you will, Stefan, with the coach of the Netherlands, Louis van Gaal, who said that they should abolish consolation finals, that they don't mean anything.
I agree. Yeah, it's a match between losers. And I'm going to watch tomorrow night, but you know, it's nonsense. But well, what can you do? You know.
Did you think the Netherlands were this time going to finally win it?
Tomorrow night from Brazil?
No, before they played Argentina in the semifinals.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think the Netherlands were a great team, and not only because I'm Dutch, but it was no, it was like the French team. Basically, nobody expected anything, and then suddenly during the tournament, they turned into a very nice playing team, and there were no quarrels. Because the Dutch and the French, the football players have the same problem, that there are lots of great individuals, but they always have trouble playing like a team. And this year that wasn't the case. So yeah, I would have been very happy to see the Netherlands Sunday night, of course, against Germany, because that's our arch rival. But unfortunately, well, in 2 years there will be a final Netherlands in Paris. That would be nice.
And of course, the next World Cup, Elena, will be in
Russia.
Yeah. Do you think that the next one will live up to the billing when you look at all that's happened, all the drama we've seen over the last month in Brazil?
For football, I cannot comment. I know that Vladimir Putin is really happy to go to the final game and to meet Dilma Rousseff and to have this, this estafette. I don't know how we say this in English. And so he's very proud, and everybody's waiting for Russians. For Russian government, it's going to be another victory like Crimea, Olympic Games, and football.
I saw a funny image on Twitter that Vladimir Putin announced the cities where the match were being held in 2018. It was Warsaw, Berlin, Kiev, all the former Eastern European capitals. So.
All right. Just a final word about, of course, the final on Sunday, Germany against Argentina. Now, the World Cup began with talk of the genius of Brazil's Neymar. It concludes not with so much with talk of Lionel Messi, but instead on a lankly, strangely built German by the name of Thomas Müller. There's even, like we could show it perhaps, a vine going around of him in a nightclub. What is it, Christian Wernicke, about this guy? He doesn't even look like a footballer.
He's the clown of the team. I mean, he people may think he's totally drunk. No, he's the clown of the team. He has been already 4 years ago. Yes, I think he's at the moment one of maybe the best player of the German team, because he can play any position in midfield and on attack. He's running like hell, and he's a real team player. When you analyze the game against Brazil, he was involved in, I think, 4 or 5 of the German goals.
And when you see the Brazil of today playing such beautiful passing game, and compared to the German football of old, is the change just because for sporting reasons, or has Germany changed?
Germany has changed. Germany is more at ease with itself than like 20 years ago. The World Cup in 2006 changed a lot because people were not any more afraid of waving German flags in the German streets. That's something that's happened in 2006.
But the way they play on the field is different.
Yeah, and that is the reason for that is that we learned our lessons in the dark years, what I call like the 90s, 94, 98, where the Germans really played badly, and they finally paid the price for it. For playing badly, they lost. And that's when we took our lessons from countries like Holland, countries like Spain, invested a lot in building up new youth development centers, and obliged the soccer clubs to do more instead of buying players from other countries, invest in training of the youth, and that now pays off.
And that's now paying off. Your prediction for the final?
I would be happy if it's 1-0, because I'm really afraid of Argentina.
For Argentina?
No, not for Argentina. If Argentina scores the first goal, then we will see more than 2 or 3 goals. And I don't know who will win then.
Amar?
Oh, it's too risky. I wouldn't go there.
Stefan?
I would say it will end in penalties. And then Argentina will win.
Elena?
I just will repeat the joke I've heard today. In football, there is two team playing, and Germans always win. So,
all right, we'll finish with the quote of Gary Lineker. Thank you very much. I want to thank Elena Servatas, Stefan de Vries, Amar Averravo, Christian Wernicke. Thank you for joining us here for The World This Week.
Shishmaref Revisited.
Shishmaref, a small Eskimo village on an islet on the fringes of Alaska. For the 600 inhabitants, global warming is not a far-off concept, but an all-too-real nightmare. Shishmaref is sinking into the sea a little more each year and seems destined to disappear. In a little under 30 years, their way of life based around hunting and fishing has completely changed. After centuries living on the island, the inhabitants know that they must leave at the risk of losing their identity.
Shishmaref Revisited. En France 24, and France24.com.